Good morning, everyone. I want to thank everybody today for attending today's Stahls Live TV broadcast today, which is creating artwork for league and team business. My name is Mike Koval. I'll be your presenter today. And to start off in class, we had a quick little poll question of how many of you folks have used Cadworx Live. So I'm going to have Joe read the answers to that for us.
Okay, on the question of how many have used Cadworx Live before, 33% have and 67% have not.
Okay, great. That's good information to know. So I know some of you, will be familiar with this, but most of you, it appears to be, this will be your first time, so it's be a great beginner class for you. So as the title states, today what we're going to be covering is creating the artwork for league and team business. Because being in, this business of heat pressing, vinyl cutting, more often than not, that's what one of your main business focuses is decorating teamwear. To decorators, whether they're beginners or whether they've been in the industry for quite some time, a lot of time the biggest learning curve for folks is the artwork portion of everything. Heat pressing, that's relatively simple. You have all the instructions, step-by-step recipe. But artwork, it's a whole different animal, which is usually, as well as mine, the biggest learning curve for anyone to get into. So what we did at Stahls is we created Cadworx Live. And what it is, it's a cloud-based online design software that's geared towards the beginner as well as the seasoned professional. For the beginner, it has a lot of clip art, a lot of templates, and one of the biggest features which we're going to be covering today is the Easy Teams generator, which is going to quickly and easily allow you to create team names and numbers quickly and easily, and also add a lot of special effects, whether it's changes in fonts, two colors, drop shadows, name it, which is what we're all going to see here. And also how to do, your script tails for the front, and things of that nature. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. So I'm going to switch over to the screen, which Joe has already done for me. And here we are at the Cadworx Live screen. And as I had mentioned before, that this is a free online-based software that anybody can have access to. One of the nice things is to keep it free. The only thing that you have to be is an active member of the Stahls community and purchase from us online or over the phone, whatever it may be. So as long as you're a Stahls customer, this is going to be free to you. So you could log in, basically create your account with your name, your email address, and then you'll supply your customer ID. So I'm already logged in here. So you would do the same, log in with your information and then be taken to your dashboard here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get into, we see the design studio here, and we also see the Easy Teams. So that's what we're going to get into today, the meat of the presentation, which is the Easy Teams portion. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. And we'll get into the design studio briefly after we go through some of these things here. So here we're taken to our Easy Teams screen, which is going to allow us to begin our team project. And what we're going to do today is we're going to cover creating, some names and numbers for the four, most popular sports, and basketball, football, hockey, and baseball. And what we'll cover is, the general and typical designs that folks use for these types of teamwear. So we'll go ahead and get started. First today we're going to, we'll start with baseball. And you'll see here our menu here, new team project. You could save your team projects in here. And you could also import a roster from a text file, and here create player names, numbers, combos, and team sponsors. So there's a number of different ways you can get started on here. So we'll just go ahead and see here in our name column here, we're going to go ahead and get started. And what we're going to do is we're going to type out our name. And this is, if you could use Microsoft Word, type out an email, you could quickly begin easily creating names and numbers. So as you see, I typed in last name here of Robinson in the name field, and hit the tab key, and well, first you'll see that generate the Robinson, and I'm going to create a number, so 33. And then you see our first name and number. And one of the nice things about Easy Teams here is, if I was designing in Corel or Illustrator, I would have to create, say I had 10 kids, I would have to create 10 different files, typing out the name, typing out the number. But here, simply, all I have to do is hit the tab key. I'm go to my next name, go to my next number, and continue on down through the process, and creating my entire roster here just by simply typing them in and going about it that way. So now Robinson is here, so if I just click this magnifying glass and see it created my next name, and if I go down here and I created Smith, there it's created my next name and number here. All right, so we can continue on down the list, as you see there. So the next step is now let's customize this to be more of an athletic look. As you can see here, this is using just a basic Arial font, which most folks aren't going to use for teamwear. So I'm going to go ahead in here to Style, and then there's a tab up here, and it's going to allow me to change the style of this name and also of this number. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the style here, and then you'll see here this menu pop up with a variety of different ways that you could design this name, from basic straight, to an arch, to an arc, two colors, bookends, so a number of different things that you could do here without having to have much design knowledge here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're doing with a baseball number, and what I'm going to do is a classic arc here, and let's see, so where is my arc? So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go ahead and click open, and as you see there, it's going to give my name an arc. And now let's just take a quick look at the other ones in here, and you see it applied to every name in my queue. So that's great, so I don't have to create this 10 different times for however many folks I have on my team. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with a number style, and you see here again with drop shadows, contours, multiple colors. So we're just going to do the basic single color here, block font. Well, we'll change the font later. Click open, and there, well, it's not going to do anything there because we just select single color. So now I'm going to go ahead and change my font, and to do that, it's very easy to do. All I have to do is double click on the name here, and then you see here in my effects queue, it already created my arc in there. So I'm going to go ahead into the font, and I'm going to pick a standard, and over here within the fonts, you have a number of different fonts you can choose from. We have our most popular athletic fonts in here, many different fonts that you could just choose from. So again, quick, easy, and it's all visual. So we'll go ahead and do the Stahls Varsity. Click open, and then you see there it applied to the name. And now typically, with most adult size jerseys on a baseball, your name is typically 2 inches in height. But if you had to change it to 2.5, 1 3/4, you can quickly and easily do that here in the 2. And if I wanted to change it to 3 inches, I could do that, and then it'll go ahead and apply that and make my font bigger. But with baseball, I'm going to stick with 2 inches. And various leagues that you may do, or they may have specific specs, for the size of the name and the number. So whoever you're designing for with your league, and it's best to definitely check with them to see if there's any certain design specs that you have to stick with, or let's say if you're doing Nike or Adidas, you're doing some contract work for them, they're most likely going to have some sort of regulations that you have to stick with. So it's just best. But for basic little leagues and local leagues, there you probably don't have any restraints, and you can design by eye what looks the best for you. So we have our Stahls block font, and there you changed it there. And if we move down the list, everything will be changed again. So just quick and easy. And now we'll do the same for the number. We'll go ahead and select our font there. And the Varsity was in this folder. Click that again, click open, and there we changed our number. And click OK. And there it changed our number. And again, going back through the list, everything has been changed to suit our needs, so we don't have to do that many different files for each of those different kids on the team or adults on the team. Okay, so there we have that. And let's move on to the next tab here, which gives us some options as far as our name and our numbers go. You could here display in inches, or if you wanted to, meters, millimeters, or centimeters. But here in the States, we'll stick with inches. And there's also some other options here. I have seen, typical placement of a name and a number is the name over the number, but if you uncheck that, it'll do it on the bottom, which I very rarely see it, especially the way it's designed on the screen now, but you do have that option. And for name and number gaps, this is basically the space between the name and the number. Most often, on a baseball, it is about an inch, but if you get into see which will, in hockey or football where the jerseys are a lot larger, we'll have to change that to 2 or 3 inches, but we're going to leave ours at 1 here. And, but that's basically here the most popular way to design baseball, and you see how easy that was. And then to output, which we'll see, towards the end, what we'll do is we'll actually output to the vinyl cutter. Nice thing about Cadworx is it does output to all the popular cutters on the market, including Roland, Graphtec, which you'll see me cutting on today, and also most GCC vinyl cutters out there. Okay, so that is creating a baseball. Oh, one other thing I'd like to mention too, a lot of times with baseballs and little leagues, you'll also have a team sponsor, so that's another nice thing Cadworx allows us to do, is if I wanted to create a team sponsor, let's say Jim's Garage has sponsored this team, and is paying for the uniforms, and so I might want to spell garage correctly, and you type that out, whatever the sponsor may be, and then how many. You're going to say, well, in our case, we have 3 people on our roster, but you would change that to whatever. And then it's automatically going to create 3 Jim's Garage in our queue. And if we click the magnifying glass, you'll see it's going to put it in the same font style that we did the name, whether you're going to put it above the name, or, if this team sponsor in most little leagues and things like that, they don't use player names, they would use the sponsor in place of that player name. So that's just a nice feature here. And again, whatever you apply the name style to, if we had 2 colors, it would have done that there. All right. So that is the basics of creating a baseball jersey. Now let's go back, because with most teams, there's going to be some sort of design on the front. So we're going to go back to our main Cadworx live screen, and we're going to launch the design studio, because what we're going to do is, very popular with baseball is an athletic tail, and you'll see once you get to the design screen of the design studio, you'll see just a number of different options that you could do here, from templates, circle text, but in our case with sports, we're going to go ahead and get into the athletic tails, and this is very popular with baseball. And again, just like your font styles and name styles, they're all visual here for us, a variety of different styles, that we could edit to suit our needs, but we're going to go ahead and click this varsity one. Let's go ahead and pick this one. Click open, and there you'll see, the varsity softball. But in our case, we're doing baseball. If we wanted to, we can go ahead and click on softball, and right off the bat, we'll change this to baseball. Okay. And there you see it changed softball to baseball. And just like the text effects, if we wanted to add a different effect here outside the envelope, we could click on that. And this is a nice stackable effects queue that we could change, multiple different things here. So we could change the font just like before. The fill color, if this was going to be a different color of vinyl, which when we get to hockey jersey, I'll show you a 2-color setup here. And click OK. And there, it changed our softball to baseball. And for varsity, not too many teams named varsity, so by that same token as with baseball, we're going to change this to our team name. We'll choose the Warriors. And where did my text go? There it is. W-A-R-R-I-O-R-S. I did all caps. I don't want to do all caps on that one. It just wouldn't look right. Warriors. And now there, that's going to remain in the script type font. And again, just like the name, if I wanted to change the size of that, I could change that there to 3 inches, 4 inches, whatever it may be, increase the character spacing, all that. So when I'm satisfied with the design, just click OK. And there we have our Warriors. So obviously we're going to have to adjust it a little bit because we did change that. So I could just drag and drop it to wherever I want to, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of mesh it with that tail. And there we have a quick and easy, script tail. And then here, if I wanted to, I could select all. I could change the height and width up here as well. Or, if I wanted to change the way that it's slanted, I could change the degree of it to whatever I want. But 15 degrees, that's probably your most common for any kind of script with tail, for whether it's softball, baseball, whatever it may be. But you do have that option here to tweak it, to best suit your needs. And so one thing that I want to stress here when doing script with tail is, we were able to edit that because right now at this point, Warriors is still a font. And if you notice it's script, it looks cursive to us right now. It looks like everything's all connected. Let's click on the wireframe down here, and it's going to take us to what your vinyl cutter is going to see when you're actually going to send to the cut. So if I click wireframe, let me zoom in here, a little bit, zoom to fit. And you'll notice these little overlaps in here. And if you send it this way to your vinyl cutter, those are going to cut out, and basically that's going to ruin your design. So with any script type font, before you actually send to your cutter, and when you're done with the text that you want it to say, and font or whatever it may be, once you're done and completely satisfied with that, what we need to do is we need to weld this together so that that's going to be one seamless line art that the cutter's going to see. So I'm going to go ahead and go under my shaping, and then you'll see a weld. And basically click that, weld, and then you'll notice all those overlapping lines will go away, and it looks like I forgot to do the arch. But now this is what the cutter's going to see, so it's going to be a nice smooth cut, and it's not going to overlap and then ruin our design. So if I want to get that tail, I'm going to select my Warriors, and I'm going to control click the tail to select that as well, and then I'm going to do that weld one more time. And there it welded my script with my text. So now when I cut this, everything is going to cut smoothly and correctly with the vinyl cutter. All right. So that is, covering the basics of a baseball design. And again, like I had mentioned before, your designs, as far as the width and height and everything, that you put on the text may change based on league standards or whatever it is that you're decorating for, but those are good guidelines for baseball. So let's go ahead and move on to basketball. And we're going to go back into the easy teams. And one thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of this class, following my class today at 2 o'clock, we're going to have Bob Robinson do a class, and he's going to take what I'm doing, and essentially he's going to be showing you the actual application, for each of these jerseys and sports. So show you the best ways to do placements, tips, tricks for alignment, and all that good stuff. So what you're seeing with me here today is more the artwork creation of it and how you would do it within Cadworx. And then if you're not signed up for this afternoon's class today at 2 o'clock, please do so. And then you're going to get the actual hands-on application to the jersey. At the end of this, we'll show the vinyl cutting and the weeding process, but Bob will get into the meat and potatoes of the actual application. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back to my screen here and go ahead with basketball. And all right, so I'm going to go ahead and, just for the sake of this one, I'm just going to create, one name just so we can see that here. And so with basketball, I'm going to go ahead and stick with, Robinson here. Robinson. And the number 33. And typical on basketball, what we're going to do is I'm going to go and do a double click, change my font, and we're just going to do the standard block font here. Click open, change that, and typically on a basketball jersey, you're going to have a 2-inch, and that's more adult. On basketball, you don't stray much from 2 inches unless you get to youth size, where maybe you make it about 1.5 inches to 1 inch, depending on the size of the jersey. Now, so you don't always want to stick, especially 1 inch if you have a kid who might be larger than most. If you have to bump that up to make it look proportionate to the jersey that they're actually wearing, it's great to do. And like one other way we could do effects is before we did it on the menu up front, we could do that same simple thing here if we wanted to add a with two color, click add effect, and there we can create a small contour, a large contour, or shadows to do it that way as opposed to doing it at the beginning on the menu. But I'm going to leave this a standard single color, which is common on basketball. Click OK. And what we're going to do is do the same with the number. And with basketball, most back jerseys are around 6 inches. So we'll change that to 6. Change our font to the same font as our name. And there we're going to have that. Click OK. And there we have a 2-inch name with a 6-inch back, which is typical on basketball. So we'll take that, and so that would be our common thing there. If we wanted to, we would output to our cutter, which we'll see later. Click output and export to vector cut, which we'll cover a little bit. And now we'll kind of go do the same thing that we did with baseball, and we'll go back to the Design Studio, and we're going to do a text effect. And with basketball, we're going to do a classic vertical arch, for the front of the team name. And so like we have the going down towards the bottom, and then we have the most common, which the arc goes up and then down. Click open, and I'm going to change our basketball team name to the Bulldogs. And I'm going to do this in all caps. And there we have that there. And typical size is about 2-inch there. Like, all right. Okay. And common with basketball is you also have a number underneath that. So we'll go ahead and add some text. Instead here we're going to go 4. Oh, wait, we did 33. Okay, and that number on the front of the basketball on a large is typically 4 inches. So we'll go ahead and change that to 4. Change our font to the Athletic, which was this one here. Click open. Click OK. And we would just move that down. And there we would have, our front of our jersey for basketball. So 2-inch name, 6-inch back number on an adult, and a 4-inch number and about a 2-inch text. That could be straight or art. That's your most common design for basketball. All right. So moving along, let's go to football. And we'll go back to our easy teams again. And with football, there's always a front number, a back number, as well as sleeve numbers. And obviously the name on the back. And another thing with football is with most youth jerseys or adult jerseys, with baseball, basketball, and even softball, most of the time those are going to be a 2-inch number. But with football, since the jerseys are a lot larger than most, we're going to go with a 2.5-inch name. Again, that's easily done here. 33. Okay. So let's starting with the back. Again, easily change that 2.5 to my Athletic font. Click open, change, perfect. The Robinson, do the same with the 33. And now most common size of a football jersey for the back number, it's 12-inch. So from 8 to 12, go back to my font. Pick the same one as before, open. Okay, so there we have our Robinson 33 easily created for the football. And as we were saying before, usually an inch on basketball and baseball, the distance between the number here on a football jersey, is going to be 2 inches. So we'll change that gap to 2. And basically why that is because most time with the sorry about that. The football jersey is there's the yoke and there's usually that stitch that's above, so you place that extra gap in there so you don't have to place the name in one application and the number in another application. When you heat press that, you'll be able to do one application instead of 2. So you could change that there at 2. All right. So now we would want to do the front. So what I'm going to do here with the front, I'm just going to keep that here. First I would output this, and then we're just going to go back to the front again, and we're doing a 10-inch front number. So we would take that, easily change it to 10. Okay. And then a lot of times with the front is, with football, it will be the team name over that number. And so we'll go with Titans. And then more often than not, that is about no more than an inch and no less than 3/4. So we'll go ahead and change that to 0.75 for 3/4. Click OK. And there we would have that, in which you'll see it applied, tomorrow, later on this afternoon. If you tune into Bob's class, you'll see that there. And then with sleeve numbers, we can go here. Now there's going to be 2 there, so I'll show you the output of this. So I'm actually going to do that in my text designer here. Okay, so we had number 33. And on football, your typical sleeve numbers are 4 inches. Change that varsity font, click open. All right, so there I have my 4-inch sleeve number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to output this to vector cut to show you how we would do the 2 of them there. And in vector cut, what this part is the cutting portion of the Cadworx Live Design Studio. What the vector cut does is it outputs to the actual device that you're cutting on. So click send to vector cut. I'm just going to name this my sleeves. You can name it whatever you want. And now it's going to launch the vector cut. And again, this is a free download from the Cadworx Live website here. And this is what we would output to the cutter. So with sleeve numbers, we would have to do 2 of these, because obviously there's 2 arms. So just highlight that. You could either do just a drag and drop a box of it, or select it, and it's going to select it for us. You edit, duplicate, and there it's going to make a second set. And there we would have our 2 sleeve numbers that we could do, at one shot. Mirror it, when we're cutting with vinyl, which we'll see towards the end here of the whole application. And I'm going to do a 2-color later on. So there we have decorating the football. And now finally we'll design here for hockey back in the designer here. And this is with the hockey. This is where we'll see the actual application once I'm done with this design. So I'm going to go back into my Easy Teams. And hockey, it's oversized like football. So you're going to have to increase the size of the numbers much like that you do with football. With hockey, most common size of a back number is 12 inches, and then with a name, 3 inches, and the same with football, the sleeves with a 4. So I'm going to give myself a shot on this one. I'm going to use my name here and the number 9. And so let's do a multicolor, because one of the nice features of vector cut is it allows you to cut by color. So in saying that, you could do the 2, 3 color numbers, and this way it's a nice logical way to separate your cutting files once you get into vector cut. So I'm going to go ahead here. I'm going to use, there's a font in here that I really like. It's called Alley-Oop for hockey. So I'm going to select that, open, and then with hockey I'm going to change this to a 3-inch name. All right. And I'm going to add effect because I'm going to make this a 2-color. So I'm going to add a large contour around this to be for our second color. Click open. And there we have that there. And we could change the offset here. I like to go about a 1/4 inch offset on this. So just change that, and that's just basically going to make our background just a little bit bigger there. All right. Click OK. And I'm going to do the same exact thing for the number 9. Using the Alley-Oop font. That's the nice thing about Cadworx too, is it does have a search feature. So if you don't remember what page the font was on, you do remember the name, you can just quickly search for it and it'll pop up for you. open. And I'm going to do the same. And I don't make sure that's, I never change the number. And that is typically a 12-inch. All right. Add the effect of the large contour, just like I did with my name. Just 0.25. Click OK. And there we have our two-color name and number. So I'm going to go ahead and now output this to vector cut, which is going to prepare me to cut. Now I'm not going to design the sleeve numbers, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do that once I get into vector cut. And we do have a question right now.
Like, they want to know, like, if they have a team with, 24 or 36 kids on it, do they have to enter each name and number individually, or is there a way to import all of that at one time?
That's a good question. So let's go back to the start. As you see here, there's an import roster from text file. So if you click on import roster from text file, you could have, one way or another, you're going to have to type it out into some sort of document. In a text file, you could just open up Notepad and type out the name, and it has to be separated by a comma, or you could do the same thing here by typing it out here. It's number 9, Robinson, 32, and go on down the list. And if you chose to do a text file, it's going to do the same format that you see here. So you're going to have to type it in one way or another, but you could just do it there. And if you click OK, let's just type a couple more names in here, just so you can see for visual purposes. Comma 6. If I clicked OK, you're going to notice that all populate in there, okay? And you would do however many you had to do. But one way or another, you're going to have to type in either a notepad or this list here, to do it that way. So whichever you choose to do. All right, we have another question?
Yes, they also want to know, now that you have all of them listed in there, do you have to go through and do all the changes to each one, or is it all done at one time?
No, that's going to be all done. Like, if you edit this first number, if you have this them checked over here, it's going to automatically change that. So if I had this first one in here, and if I added more, let's just add another one here. Now if I hit the magnifying glass here, it's going to take whatever font style that I had originally created. So you don't have to go ahead in there. That's what makes this Easy Teams so quick and easy. Because you don't have to create individual files for everything. It's all done for you on the fly. So anytime I append anything to this list, it's going to change it to that whole queue, whole list of names and numbers that I have in there. Great questions. All right, so back to the hockey design here for the back. I'm going to go ahead, first too, I forgot to change the spacing. And we do a 2-inch, much like that of football, between our name and our number. All right, so let's go ahead and output this. And I'm going to export this to vector cut. And when you do that, it's going to export and it's going to ask you for your material size. And that you're going to get from your cutter. Like what I'm going to load in here, it's going to be 15-inch thermofilm when I cut this name and number. So with most vinyl cutters, you're going to get about, on a 15-inch roll, you're going to get about 13.5 to 14 inches of actual cuttable area. So if you have 15 inches, you most certainly don't want to enter this in 15-inch, because you'll actually cut off your design. So do it at about 13.5, 14 inches just to be safe. So I'm going to do 13.5 to give myself that leeway. Click OK, and then it's going to bring it in and open it up in vector cut, which is where you're going to output all of your designs from. And I'll go back to export a couple of names and numbers so you see how that'll lay it out too. So here we are in our design screen. So I'm going to zoom in just so you can see a little easier here. And you'll notice here all the line art, and you'll see the gray outline here, which is our background color for our 2-color name and number. And then we have our foreground color here, and they are separated by colors. One of the nice features about vector cut is for 2 colors is you could actually go ahead and just select one color, and it's going to take away that foreground. So we could easily just set up our file, to cut the background, and then when we're ready to cut the foreground, just change it back there. So you don't have to cut one, the foreground out and paste it in another file to do that. And it's a nice cut by color feature that I really like with Cadworx Live. So we're going to go ahead and do some cutting here next, and we're going to cut the name and the number. We're going to cut our background color first. It doesn't matter if you cut foreground or background first. That's, whichever you want to do. That doesn't matter until you actually go and apply it. You obviously want to do the background layer first and then apply the foreground on top. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to take away the weed border. I don't like the extra weeding there. So, and in our case, we're going to be exporting to the Graphtex CE6000, but you'll see in here under my cutter selection here, it has the Roland GX24, and it's also compatible with the new GS24, but also the GCC Expert series, the Jaguar, the Puma, Roland, the Silhouette Cameo, the Eyeline. And even if you have some off-brand cutter, more often than not, using the universal HPGL will allow you to output to that. So we're going to go in here into the CE6000, and just to double check, click the properties. And when I was mentioning about if you use the generic HPGL, if you have an off-brand cutter, you could typically just click this drop-down box, and you'll find the driver that's necessary to run your cutter, and just select that. Okay. And click OK. And before we do anything when cutting with vinyl, first thing that we have to do is mirror our design. So, and that's easily done with this mirror button up here. And so I'm going to go ahead and switch to the camera mode here, and we're going to go ahead and output to the cutter. All right. So I have to move my laptop up here. And my USB cord for the cutter. Plug it in. And I'm going to do a red and white number for the cutting here. So I'm loading my white thermofilm into my cutter here. Just my pinch rollers. Cutting on the Graphtex CE6000 here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just set my origin here. And first thing you want to do when vinyl cutting anything is always test your downforce, just to make sure that you don't cut that whole list of team name and numbers, so, and then you find out you don't have enough downforce and it didn't cut, or too much and you cut right through it. So I've already set my downforce at, it's on a 17 here for the thermofilm, but consult your whatever material you're using and what's your recommended downforce there. And we do have a question.
Before you get too farther in, the question is, what's the advantage or disadvantage of having the auto weed checked?
I don't like to use the auto weed feature on larger designs, because to me that's an extra box that you have to weed, because what the weed box does is going to cut a box around each design that you have laid out there. So if it's a larger design, it doesn't really add any effect. It's just an extra weed that you have to do on the vinyl. Where I do like to use the weed box is if it's a smaller design or if it's very detailed. I could pull away that weed box and I know I have that small square there, and I know that that's what I'm going to weed out, and that helps when using smaller or more detailed designs. Okay. All right, so I have my material loaded, ready to cut, and I had tested my downforce before the class started, but like I said, always test your downforce, because when I was prepping some of these files yesterday, I didn't do that, and I ruined some vinyl. So let's not that happen to you. So we're going to go ahead and send this from vector cut to the cutter. And we'll get a close-up here on the machine cutting, and that's number 4. A nice thing about vinyl cutting your own, this is unattended cutting, so while I could have sent that whole list of name and numbers, for this to cut, I could have been, weeding a batch before or doing some heat application, whatever that may be. So, and I clicked the wrong camera angle, so I need to go back to 3. And it's done cutting. We're going to cut it off our cutter here. All right. Cut that off of the machine. Set this aside for right now. And since we're at the cutter, I'm going to go ahead and cut the foreground color, which I'm going to use as red. And when loading your material in the vinyl cutter, a lot of times I've seen people do this in their shop. When they're trying to line up their material, they'll move their material back and forth like this to keep it straight. But that's not really going to do any good, because if you just move the material, you're actually going to make the skew worse. So I like to stand kind of on the side of the machine here, and then rather than just move the front, I'm moving the whole roll behind this, so that I know that it's going to be straight on both ends. Lock my pinch rollers down here and set the width, and I'm going to switch back to my computer here so you can see the cut by color. And we just cut the white, so we had our background here layer selected. But now in our case, we're going to go ahead and change to the foreground for our red, and then you see our file got a little smaller now because that's going to be the foreground when we heat apply it. So there's that. We already have it mirrored, and I'm going to go ahead back and send it to the cutter. And while that's cutting, I'm going to go ahead to the close-up here, and I'm going to do everybody's fun thing with CAD Cut. It's weeding. So there's no way around weeding, and hopefully one day with technology advancing as fast as it does, that somebody comes up with an automatic weeding machine to make our lives a whole lot easier. So with the thermofilm, it's our most popular product, especially for football and hockey, because those are very high contact sports, and it's a thicker material that's going to stand up to the to the brutal sport of hockey and football, since there is such high contact. But with it being a little thicker and more rigid, you see how quickly and easily that is to weed. So with the number 9 here, I have a cavity. So I'm going to pull that out. And so there we have our weeded background color for our number 9. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the red off of the cutter here. Go back to cut that off just like we did the white. And come back to cut. Or to weed, I'm sorry. We already cut. Same thing, start at a corner. So if I would have kept the weed box on here, if I'd have started at that corner, what I would have done was peeled away basically the outside edge of that weed box. And not having that, that's one less step that I have to weed. So, peel away the red. And don't forget the cavities. And sometimes, with material, you may, with the lighting, depending on the room, you may have a little trouble seeing the cut line. If you buck it a little bit, you'll see that split out. And that way you don't pick unnecessarily and put a hole in your lumber. Okay, there's 0, or the letter O, and the letter A. And so there we have our foreground color, for our name and a number. All right, so there we have that. And with hockey, we do typically have the sleeve numbers. So I'm going to go ahead back to my screen, and show you, how I would do that rather than create separate files. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mirror it just so you can see, for the effect. Rather than, I'm going to go ahead and delete my name here. And this one moved a little bit, so. I moved that slightly there. And rather than go ahead and create a new name and number set, I'm just going to go ahead and select this. And up here, I'm going to change my height to 4 inches because that's a typical sleeve number. Hit enter. And so the nice thing there is I'm keeping the contour in proportion as well, so I don't have to go ahead and adjust it, because we did a 2.5 contour on the name and a number for a full size, so that 2.5 contour on a smaller number, it's probably going to be a little bit larger, so we could tweak it so it's going to keep proportionate to our back number, to our sleeve number. And so then for the sleeve, I would go ahead here, edit, duplicate, edit, duplicate, and then it's going to create my second set, and I would just move that over, and then I would have my sleeve numbers there. I'm not going to output these, just mirror them, and then again you can do the same thing, cut by color to cut the red, and then the same thing to cut the white. So I would have done the same thing with the football numbers as well, rather than creating that second file. Okay, so I forgot to grab a T-shirt here. So Joe, who is doing the facilitating here for me, is gonna run out and grab me a blank T-shirt. That's one thing that I forgot, to do for the presentation here today. But that is the beauty of Cadworx and how easy it is to go ahead and create an entire team name and numbers, with that list, and then changing the font styles to shadows, to arches, to arcs, quickly and easily. And nice thing about too, and, especially for me, everything is visual, so it's all right in front of you, point and click, kind of cookie cutter here, cookie cutter there, and place everything and make it all nice and simple, rather than having, like, if I'm using Koval or Illustrator, I have to create 15 different names and numbers and apply that name and number style 15 different times. So Cadworx just makes life so much easier and much more simpler, especially for the beginner, but also not to mention, to the seasoned veteran, who may have, be very good in Koval or Illustrator, but, now having the Cadworx, what might have taken them a couple hours to do, creating that whole list, might only take them now a half an hour, and that's just giving them more time to do more jobs and ultimately make more money. So now that Joe was so kind to grab me a T-shirt and pick up on my slack, I'm going to go ahead and take this over to the heat press and do some application here. All right, so I'm going to do a visual overhead here of the heat press, and we are using today the Hotronix Fusion, which, when decorating teamwear, it's probably the most popular due to the fact that we have a swing away style, and we're going to have a heat-free workspace here. So, if we're cutting our own names and numbers, we can lay that out quickly and easily without having to work under the heat. And also, if you're using pre-cut lettering numbers, it's a nice way here, so you don't have to be like a clamshell style, laying those names and numbers out underneath that heat to possibly burn your fingers. So having a swing away, or as with the Fusion, the draw to pull it out, it's definitely great there, and nice production feature. So position our shirt there, and I'm going to go ahead and grab my background color in the thermofilm, and that is the white. So this is kind of definitely oversized for a T-shirt, but since this would be going on a hockey jersey, which, like I said before, if you tune in to Bob's class at 2 o'clock, you'll be able to see all these names and numbers applied to the actual jersey they're meant to go. So you get to see visual representation of kind of what we covered in the design portion of it. So thermofilm applies at 330 degrees for 8 to 10 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and lock that down. 330 for 10. Release at the beep. And we'll go ahead and remove a carrier. And thermofilm is a hot peel, so we don't have to wait for anything to cool. We're going to go ahead and grab our red foreground. Go ahead and place this over top. like so. Lay that down, swing it back, and again, demo film 308 for 10 seconds. Lock her down to apply the foreground. Same process would occur if we had a 3-color. All right. Release at the beep. And hot peel. And there we have a 2-color name and number application onto our pretend hockey jersey. But again, tune in later on at 2 o'clock to see Bob Robinson. And now I'm going to go ahead and switch it back to normal view and close it out here. So that is the creating artwork for team and league business with Cadworx Live. You know, for those of you who may not have used Cadworx, I strongly suggest you go to cadworxlive.com, and that's CADWORX live.com. Go there, create your account. It's 100% free, and when you first sign up, it's going to say, 30-day, maybe it's 60-day. Regardless, it's going to say a trial version. And towards the end of that trial, we're not going to bait and switch you and then charge you for it after the trial. All it's going to do is simply ask for your Stahls customer ID. Once you populate that customer ID in there, that software is going to remain free to use, for the life that you're a Stahls customer. And then, even on the trial version, should you not be a customer of Stahls yet, and considering purchasing some equipment or some materials from us, that trial version is the full-blown version. So you're not going to be shortchanged with only being able to do certain things or not output to your cutter. It's all free all the time. And like I said, just seeing how quick and simple that it was to do a lot of different things with Cadworx. And like I said, at 2 o'clock, please, if you haven't already, sign up for Bob Robinson's class, who's going to take a more hands-on approach of all these things that we covered with the design. He's actually going to apply them to the specific jersey, a football jersey, a basketball jersey, a hockey jersey, and a baseball jersey. And then he'll give you some extra tips and tricks, as far as placements, using different presses to achieve the heat press of the sleeves. So it's going to be a kind of an all-encompassing class for you for today, and then later on at 2 o'clock, to get it full circle. I appreciate everybody's time today, and please, at the end of the, we do have a brief survey, with some questions for you to help us make these presentations better for you. Appreciate if you fill that out after this class. Once again, my name is Mike Koval. Thanks today for tuning into Stahls TV.